Hello everyone.
Please let me know when I can start. Okay.
Hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar on data protection regulation and increasing risk. Today we have Kavita and Godhaman with us. They'll be taking it forward to the webinar. Over to you, Godhaman and Kavita.
Thank you, Sheetal. Good evening, everyone. For the second webinar, Chennai chapter. I would like to quickly introduce about Kavita. As you all know, Kavita is very known to us. She's a great professional, expert in terms of cybersecurity and in terms of privacy. I'm now going to give a great introduction about her. I'd like to have a few word about with respect to GDPR practitioner and ISO 27770. Great expert, and she has been working with HCL, Wipro, and few other places as well. She has done a lot more implementation, and specific to GDPR, she has undergone a lot more trainings, and she has implemented a lot more projects. And today she is there with us to share the insights and risks. Kaita.
Thank you. Thank you, Gautam, for the quick intro. And hi, everyone. And hope most of you know me. And this session, before starting off the session, to give a quick background about the data privacy and the expertise around that area. So I'm a certified, GDPR professionalist, BS 10012, as well as ISO 27701. So both from US and UK standard perspective, and also currently pursuing CIPP and would be taking up my exam soon. So having said that, this is quick intro to just to ensure the knowledge levels, and I've experienced in a lot of GDPR implementation, both for the customer side as well as for the enterprise, you know uh, on both the angles. Now here we are sitting here together to understand about data privacy regulatory requirements, and how is it in the market today, and what are the kinds of data breaches and risks trending, and also how do we manage at an enterprise level, how do we get it implemented and ensure our data is protected to safeguard our business. So first, when we are talking about the data privacy or the data protection, we'll just take a step back and see where it did start off initially, and what is the history, and where it is coming from. So when it all started off in 1948, around after this World War II, where the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is adopted, not only from the data protection of the systems, but also from the human rights and human information, which is a fundamental compliance requirement. So in 19, as it was only in the discussion, and a lot of different types of rights to privacy was coming in, by 1970s there was an increase in the usage of computers to process information about the individuals, and international data transfer, and lot of border level transitions were happening. So when it was developing, there was a right to private life, and essential freedoms became a major concern and major requirement, and considered as a fundamental human rights for protecting the information of an individual. So in early 80s, a number of countries, which majorly led by European countries, to which was totally advancing in implementing the legislations aimed to controlling use of personal info by government and the companies that were making transaction of the individual's information. So we all know that in 2018, by May 25th, there was GDPR, which is a data protection regulation that was released in Europe. And this is mainly what GDPR was mainly released for protecting our professional or personal information, which needs to be very particular, stringent, complete, accurate, and up to date. So this is GDPR's requirement. So when we are talking about GDPR, it is not the first regulatory requirement that was introduced or the first one which is coming into the market. There are a lot of other uh, regulatory requirements on the data protection acts which is globally released across the world. Especially there are regulatory or the acts like CCPA, which is California based protection act, and we have CC we have PIPEDA, which is Canada based, and we have PDBB, which is going to get released in India, which is still under discussion. And by 2009 it was still in the draft mode, and based on the current situation, as we all know, it is in the position of um, you know I think I mentioned CCPA to be which is released in California. It is very stringent. However, it is not if you see CCPA and PIPERA, both are more aligned or more or less governed or taken best practices from GDPR. Why we have to take GDPR as one of the scope for discussion now is that is one act which is published by the regulatory body with stringent regulatory requirements, stringent recitals, and it talks about from the minor or the from the minor till people's demises. So it has recitals well articulated and well defined in all the circumstances and how effectively we should be using. And if you see on the current date, GDPR was released in 2018. However, it didn't it was given a time, nearly 2 years, for the organization to slowly take it up and get it aligned. By 2020, it would be a period where we will have to be ready to face the audits. So that's the current accountability that each and every organization has to take and get aligned to. And let's see and understand what is GDPR, and what do we have to know about it, what are the principles, and how do we get governed by it, and how are the breaches that is happening. So GDPR is nothing but a European General Data Protection Regulation, which requires all the organizations to keep a tab or to protect the information of all the personal data that they are working on effectively. If we are working with the customers or with our employees or with any kind of third parties that we work with, we always have to ensure the personal data that it might be you know a general personal data or a sensitive data, or it can be anonymous data. But to quote here, general personal data and sensitive personal data both are comes under GDPR. However, anonymous data which is unidentified will not be under the scope of GDPR. So just to be, if any information that is unidentified and we are not able to make out where it comes from, so that will not be under the scope of GDPR. However, personal data and sensitive data would be in scope. And when did it come up? It came up in May 2018, May 25th, that we were talking about, to enhance the protection of data. And why did we, bring this data, or why was this GDPR released by the European Council? Is generally basically to protect the individual's information, individual's data records. Okay, how do we manage that, and how did it imply, and where does it imply? Whenever there is going to be any data breaches, or we are going to personal data is going to be misused, or it's going to be transferred, then there would are large penalties which would be penalized for the individuals. It's not a small amount, but it's a very large penalty, where it's 4% of the annual turnover, or 20 million euro dollars. So that's a huge amount, and this penalty is very huge. And even when this GDPR was getting introduced in Europe, not everyone accepted. 28 countries which is under that accepted, but the portion of the countries, as you all should be aware about the Brexit, were not aligning or we're not accepting this agreement, but still it's under discussion and a lot of pop-ups come in, but GDPR is standing strong, and it is available for us all to imply to and align to the standard and regulatory requirements. So what are all the changes if you see here in this slide that I'm showing? So when we are going to imply GDPR, what are the key changes with the data protection or the data processing that we are doing currently, right? So, GDPR is a European Act which is released by the European Council. As we said, the first and foremost we should be aware about it. This is only implied to the European personal data. So, how does it imply in India, US, or Australia? So, it will imply or it will apply to us when we are working on any European personal data. We work on different projects and work on different geos, right? So if you are going to work on any European data where personal's information related to our projects, so it implies to it, and we have to get aligned to GDPR regulatory requirement. And then it shouldn't be like only if we are going to be in Europe it applies. No, wherever we are working from Australia or India, if we are working in our project related to any personal information of European personal, it implies to us, and we'll have to align to the GDPR regulatory requirement. Okay, and the second, what all it implies is, there is if there is any personal data that is going to be breached, or it's going to be likely to result in a risk of exposing the data, there is a huge penalty that we discussed about is 4% of the annual turnover, or 20 million euro dollars. And this is a huge amount. And when an incident that occurs or a data breach occurs, what is the timeline within which we will have to submit, or how do we get notified? The European Council has given a very stringent timeline, like it is 72 hours. Within 72 hours, we will have to intimate or inform the regulatory body. If it is not getting notified within 72 hours, this fine that applies to us. So when we're talking about the data breaches, the penalty, we will be thinking of who should be notifying, and how do we what is the process behind that, right? So here there are three terms that we should always be aware about, and the first one is the data subject, the data controller, and the data processor. These are three important elements that we have to be aware about, and which we should be knowing. And in detail we'll be seeing in the forthcoming slide, but just to give a heads up, so data subject is a body where they own the data. They are the owners of the data that or that we are going to work on. And the data controller creates or means and purpose of the data that we are going to work on. They are the owners, or they are the team that um, defines the purpose and means of the data. And data processors are the people who executes or who processes the means and purpose that is defined by the data controller. So these are the three elements that we'll have to be knowing about. And there is also another element under the processor that comes as sub-processor. The sub-processor is nothing but the third parties that we work with. So taking an example, for example, the World Bank is data subject. And if there is if they're going to outsource this to an A company, they become the processor. And the processor, the World Bank defines the process, the means and purpose, and what level of service they are outsourcing it to the processor. So once the World Bank defines the means and expectations, the processor or the A company processes the level of activities that is being required. And if a portion of work can be outsourced by the A company. For example, if A company gets 3 tasks and one of the tasks is dependent on a vendor, so that's where we outsource it, for the work, that portion of the work to be done. So that becomes the sub processor. The vendor or the third party who works on a portion of our work is the sub processor, and who executes the expectation or the purpose of the activities that is defined by the controller is the processor. Okay, so to know about other changes, or what are the key elements, we'll see here the principles. Okay, what are the key principles of GDPR, and what do we have to keep in mind when we are working on any data, and what are we accountable for? So first and foremost, the key principle of GDPR is ensuring the legal biases. It should be legal basis, and whatever we are working on, it should be lawful, and it should be fair. Whatever transactions or the contracts or kind of notes or agreements that we are going to sign up, it should be clearly well defined, and it should be transparent for us to obtain the data. And we'll have to keep ensure the level of access, the level of restrictions, the level of execution requirements, everything is well defined and it is clearly documented, so that there shouldn't be any clause or any statement phrase that gives a glitch. And another key element is purpose limitation. It is one of the key principle, where when we are defining the purpose, we'll have to make it very specific, and it has to be well harmonized, and it should be meeting the requirements clearly, and it shouldn't be over and beyond the expectations, because the purpose is very important to be defined, so that tomorrow there wouldn't be any confusions. And another key principle is the data minimization, and the integrity and confidentiality, storage limitation, and accuracy. When we're talking about this, it basically talks about the data that we are going to work on. How do we minimize the data, and how do we going to protect the data, and where are we going to store the data? And when we are storing the data, we will have to ensure it is being built, or it is structured in such a way that when we are using a data for a particular project, there should be a timeline, a retention period that needs to be defined very clearly, after the usage of which, based on the discussion or the agreement with the controller, it can be either masked, or it can be erased, or it can be terminated, or it can be extended until for the next 5 years or 10 years. The detention period should be clearly defined and agreed, and based on which the data should be stored in your network. And that is very important principle, because retaining the data only for the necessary needs and necessary period is mandatory. Okay, and the data that we are working on should be accurate, and it shouldn't be backlogging or any irrelevant information, or any updated or unupdated information shouldn't be maintained, or stored in our network. Now let's talk about the personal data breaches, the notification that we spoke about just before, within 72 hours. So what is the personal data breach? The exact definition is given over here, and the obligations of the data processor and the data controller. So seeing, not going by the slide, but to just give you an example, that when a processor according to BS 10012, there are nearly 170 articles. In that, Article 33 talks about this personal data breaches. In that, the timeline between, we will have to understand, yes, we will have to notify the European Council within 72 hours. Yes, but how do we take it forward? Because there are a lot of, lot of people or lot of teams involved in that, like data subject, data controller, processor, and the sub-processor. So how do we define the timelines, and who takes the ownership in notifying the European Council, right? So to answer that, so the the data subject is owns this, and he should ensure without any delay he will have to notify the European Council within 72 hours. And the timeline between the controller and the processor is not calling out, or the article doesn't article or the recital doesn't call out specific timeline within which they will have to notify to the controller. The processor should ensure they whenever there is a data breach or an incident that occurs without undue delay. So that is a term we have to catch, that it is specifically given as per the article 33. It's undue delay, and what is the timeline that is going to be defined. It differs from the enterprise to enterprise, that anybody can we all can design the timelines which falls under 72 hours. So end of the day, it is the data subject who have to update the European or notify the European Council within 72 hours. So what is the timeline that needs to be defined in between the sub processor and the processor, and in between the processor and the controller to the data subject, is completely differs from contract to contract, from the internal controls, and with respect to your policies and standard. It has to be designed in such a way that the data subject would be in a position to notify the European Council within 72 hours. Okay, so when at a very large level, we know that if there is a data breach that occurs, it is 20 million euro dollars, or 4% of 4% of the annual turnover, whichever is on the higher side. But there is also one more penalty, which considering the considering the current conditions and the level of impact that is going to have, there is 10 million euro dollars, or the 2% of the annual turnover is also liable, where it is so what is the difference? When do we have to pay 10 million euro dollars, and when 20 million euro dollars? Is nothing but 10 million is more with talking about the internal controls, or the repetition, or the internal any difference in the obligations, or the contractual requirements, or anything like that, is is at a minimal level, is 10 million euro dollars. But when it is completely going to be affecting the principles of protecting the personal data, and that's where this 20 million euro dollars come affect any circumstances that comes in affecting any personal data of an individual. This 20 million euro dollars applies. But when it is only restricted to the documentation, or any kind of contract or contractual obligation that needs to be, that can always be considered, that comes under the primary level, where 10 million euro dollars applies. Okay, now we'll talk about about the data subject, and what are their rights, and what are the specifics that we need to know about that, right? The the controller appropriately takes measures. He takes the ownership to provide the timely updates to the data subject. As we said, data subject is the owner of the data, or owner of the services that we are working on, and whatever is he's he's intelligible, or he's accessible, should be clear and written very clearly, with respect to the access that he's providing to the processors, or the controls, the authorization, the erasure of the data, or the rights to be forgotten, or for example, if there is any data that needs to be restricted, or he can, the data subject has the rights to revoke the services that is being outsourced, or he has the rights to withdraw the contracts, or to make any changes when we are working on it, because the data subject is a decision maker who completely owns the data, and he decides on the restrictions and liabilities of the services that the controller or the processors are controller defines, or the processor is working on. So he's completely liable to be taking the decision at any point of time. and including making the decision of if there is any consequences or any challenges that he facing with the transactions or the liabilities, he has the rights to revoke or withdraw the service levels. Okay. Now, this is giving a general definition about the data subject, the controller and the processor, as we discussed. That so data subject is, the individual whose data is being processed or used. Controller is the person who defines the purpose and means of processing the data, and processor is the person who, on behalf of the controller, executes or make the processing of the data. Okay. And now here, this slide specifically it talks about GDPR. It didn't, by surprise, came in by May 25th, 2018. It all started off in 2016 itself, where they decided that based on the recitals and the articles that is defined in GDPR today, the BS 10,012, they've decided, in by April 2016, or if we have to basically go even then, look at the history, it started off in 1995 itself, when the legislation body slowly started developing in creating the data principles and data protection laws to adopt the personal protection principle. In April 2016, it was more became more important, and to process on to come up with the protection data protection regulation. So it started in very stringently in 2016, and based on the changes and the uh, guidances and the European Council's mandates, there were changes that's happening, and by 25th May 2018, it came in and it got established. And this privacy law has been opened for 2 years now, and in 2 years, the European Council has given time for all the organizations to understand about the requirements, to adapt to the principles, and to implement across their organization. By 2020, it is time for us to be ready, for us to have it implemented in our respective organizations, and to be ready to face the audits, where in any audits henceforth, yeah, the implementation of this GDPR, or it is GDPR. When we talk about, not only specific that only GDPR applies, but there are local bodies also, local regulatory, local acts that is available, which we will have to, at an enterprise level, think about it, and whatever applies based on the data that we are working on, the services that we are providing across the globe, we will have to ensure we are getting aligned to the regulatory requirements, and get it documented, and it has to be compliant specific. It has to be compliant to the Data Protection Act, to ensure we are protecting the data. Okay. So here, when we are working on any kind of data, there are 5 questions that we should be asking ourselves, and 5 things that we need to ask ourselves when we are working on any personal data. First and foremost is, who is having access to the personal data that we are working on, and where do we keep the personal data, where are we storing it, and who all have access to the data that we have stored, and where are we transferring the data? Is it only within, for example, if you're working from India, so is it within India is where the data is getting circulated, or is it crossing the borders? And if it's crossing the borders, are we aligning to the data protection acts or the legal acts that is established globally? And why is the personal data under our control? Are we What is the level of access that is provided to us? And when we are controlling this data, are we having only read only access, or we can edit the data? And if we are editing the data, what kind of you know authorizations and authentication that has been enabled, and are they in place? We have to ensure these controls are checked. And when we are working on the data, we should always also think about, till when do we have access to the data? Do we have privilege to retain the data for what level of time? And whatever data that we are working on, when do we have to erase or terminate it? And do we have the privilege to share the information that we are working on? And is it having a restricted access? and what mechanism do we have in place to safeguard the data? So are we aligned to GDPR, or do we have any internal IRMs or internal controls that we have, using which any methodology that we've defined or any framework that we have built, which we are aligning to safeguard the data? We will have to, think about, and we will have to ask specifically these questions to ensure that the data that we are working on, and the kind of service that we have agreed upon to deliver, is it getting aligned to the personal protection act? Okay, we have to ensure it is protected within our database, and we are following the key principles that we just spoke about, and we are accountable for the data that we are working on. And what is the data processor's accountability? So when data processor is all of us, most of us are involved in, and we have to be very we have to be very sure that we are accountable of the data that we are working on. And what are the key uh, you know key principles that we have to keep in mind when we are processing the data is, first and foremost, aligning to the six principles that we have spoken about, GDPR key principles. We, in keeping that in mind, we have to always ensure the information that we are processing, or we are signing an contract or a saw or an agreement with, is processed lawfully, fairly, and in a transparent manner. That is first and foremost requirement on whatever document or the contract that we are working on. We have to ensure it is completely transparent, and the information that we are documenting should be very specific, and it should be adequate and relevant to the subject that we are signing off this agreement with. There shouldn't be any irrelevant subject or irrelevant details that is needs to be available. And another one is, we have to also ensure when we are signing off, or when we are developing a document, it should be till what level the retention period also should be exclusively called out, and how, what is the till what do we have, till when do we have to store this information, and when do we have to erase the information, and what is the termination period or the retention period has to be well defined. And the data that we are collecting, during our services that we are providing, we should always understand what is the level of access that we have, what is the specification, what is the purpose that we are working on. And the data that we are working on should always be protected, accurate, and wherever is necessary, we'll have to keep it up to date, and we shouldn't have any old or backlogs maintained, to ensure that our data is accurate and there is no issues while we are working on the information that we are working. And we have to ensure, another key element is, we'll have to ensure the data that we are working on should be protected, well secured, and well stored. Wherever we are storing the data is well protected. This is where the information security also plays a key role, or it can be saying it's hand in hand, because data protection and data security work hand in hand to ensure the data that we are working on is protected and well secured, and there is no circumstances where we'll have to face in the data theft or the data loss. Okay. And we all would have heard about a DPO, data protection officer. Okay, what is the necessity, and why do we have to have a data protection officer in our corporate, and why do we need it? So this is a slide that we are going to talk about that. And before we talking about the DPO also, based on the current situation, the COVID situation that we are seeing today, facing today, there are a lot of personal data of our employees that we are transferring, and we are maintaining on for different purposes and different means. So does this GDPR affect us, and do we have to really be aligned to the data regulatory requirements that we have? So that is a very important question that is prevailing in our environment today. But there is one link or one body that I would like to talk about is ICO, which is the Information Commission Office. ICO is very important because it is completely a regulatory body, which is which is in Europe, and it is specifically there it has the rights to maintain the rights to information, the privacy, the independent authority to uphold information rights in the public interest. And they are also promoting the the way the data has to be used and utilized in the public services. And it's a data privacy for individuals. How do we utilize the data, and where does it play a role? So this ICO is one that I would definitely recommend, and I've given the link in the reference section in this presentation also, which we should keep a tab on, because they definitely release lot of acts and lot of notices related to the current situation or ongoing activities also. For the COVID situation currently, the section is very there's a notice that is released by this act, by this ICO, that the act is flexible, because we are not sure on the kind of data transfer that is happening on a daily basis on for different means, for tracing our employees safety, to understand their health conditions, and to ensure their information is protected. We do take necessary measures, but still if there is any deviations from the key principles of GDPR, is there any penalties that we need to foresee? But the ICO has given a note that for time being it is going to be flexible, and it is not going to be penalized immediately. There is a deviation which is accepted and agreed, so that it is not permanently, but it is only for the time period because of this COVID situation, that whatever if there is a deviation in aligning to the regulatory requirement, it is fine. But we shouldn't do that or maintain that to a permanent level. And for the current period, whatever data that we are working on collecting, storing, processing, this data has to be stored in a secure place, because this particular information will be audited and will be checked in the future on what are the kind of information that we have collected, and during this period, and what was the deviation, and is it being erased after the requirement? Because we should, as I said, it shouldn't be permanently. We are going to follow and maintain the information or maintain the process that we are following now. It is only for the time period that they've agreed, and the same has to be followed and aligned to. And once this requirement is completed, we are out of this COVID situation and everything is back to BAU, that particular process that we were following, which has a little deviation to the key principles, has to be erased or terminated. However, to be stored in a secured environment, to be showcased when necessary. All right. So the data protection officer that we are talking about here is a mandatory requirement as per GDPR. It is basically to ensure there is a special a special platform or a special a team which is available to manage and to maintain the core activities of the processor and the controller, because it is not one or two clients or one or two vendors or one or two projects that we work on, right? There are a lot of projects and a lot of teams and a lot of clients that we work with. So from each and every agreement, there is change in the expectations, the level of access, and the level of transactions that we are going to work on. So there is a requirement for one team or one individual to ensure that whatever activities that is involved in managing the personal data is completely secured, and it is aligning to the standard requirements, because we are ensuring working in a large companies and large scales. It is important that we involve an individual regularly and to systematically monitor and ensure the data that we are working on is aligning to the standard requirements, and we are protecting the information information of the clients or the customers that we are working with. And there are some key elements given in the slide that you see here. First and foremost is, it is a, the DPO is a position which is considered at a senior level. In most of the organization, the DPO, reports to the CEO itself directly, because it's such a senior level. For the reason, this Data Protection Act is not is not a small incident or a small attack which we can recover from it, because it affects, its impact is high, right? Its impact is high in a way that it's not only with the penalization that we discussed on, like the 4 million 4% of the annual turnover, or 20 million euro dollar. It's not this only that, but it also implies on our reputation of our enterprise, and how it is going to affect our business. So it is very important that every organization should have a DPO assigned, and his main role would be on ensuring that he is he's well equipped, he's certified, and he will be in a position to train the employees to understand about the data protection requirements, the data processing, and how important is an individual's data. And he would also be one of the point of contact who works in between in the company and the GDPR, European Council, or the GDPR supervisory authorities. So whenever there is an incident that occurs, he takes the ownership at a company level to ensure he is involved from the beginning till the end, in keeping in keeping the data subject informed, and in turn where the data subject has to notify the European Council. So the DPO plays a key role in ensuring he gives the timely updates to the data subject during any incident. So it's a very primary and sensitive role, which has to be governed with the proper data privacy requirements. So his main purpose, or his important responsibility would be to ensure on an ongoing basis he needs to monitor the performances of the data protection activities. What are we aligned are we aligned to our regulatory requirements? Because it differs from country to country and location to location. Also, there are different types of regulatory acts or data protection acts that is available. So now we are talking about GDPR, because of the broad stretch, but there are other data protection acts also we have, as we discussed, like CCPA or PEPEDA, or in India, once this PDPB is going to be released also. So the DPO should ensure he is customizing based on the Data Protection Act that the location or the country demands, based on the culture and the local regulatory requirements he needs to get aligned to. And there is also very important there is very important role for the DPO to ensure if there is any deviations, or if there is any exceptions or exemptions to the country specific, or to the local regulatory requirements. He has to uh, make sure that he is aligning, and he is safeguarding the jurisdictions, and binding by the corporate rules. Okay, so this is as we're talking about the data protection officer, it is very important that we get a person assigned. And the DPO position is very important for an organization, not only from GDPR standpoint, from any data protection concepts. Protecting the personal information is very important. And the privacy by design, and privacy by the contract, or privacy by our code of conduct, it's very important that we protect the data. And it is very important the DPO is assigned and available in any enterprise currently. Okay, so let's see at a global level, what is how is the data breaches affecting, and what is happening to our data. So if you see the outline that given here, the average total cost of a data breach is $3.86 million. Okay, so this outline that you see here is completely from one of the major survey that is done, major survey that is being done and released. So this is picked up from there. And this overview gives us the likelihood and the liability of the data that is getting lost on a day-to-day basis. How is it stolen, and how is it getting marketed? So currently, based on the current situation, what is increasing and what is globally attacking is on the PHI, the personal health information. Personal health information is become a increasing trend in getting exploited nowadays, because the it is going the cost that is that is getting seen or defined as per the media, is it ranges from even from you know $30 till 3,000 or $3,000 or $30,000. It per, I'm talking about the per contract, right? So it is increasing from the minimal to the utmost cost on selling, or on selling the personal data. So it is very important for us to be aware the likelihood of losing the data and getting it lost. The data thefts have increased during this period, especially during this COVID situation. There is that's why, if you see from the cybersecurity standpoint also, the phishing has been one of the major threat. Nearly 85% of the organizations, or the market is affected by the phishing, because that's where the data theft or the data loss is happening on a day-to-day basis. So we'll have to be always aware about what kind of data that we are working on, how we should secure the data, and if there is any data breach that happens, how we should control that, how we should stay compliant to you know to avoid facing any data loss. We will be seeing that in forthcoming slides. But let's see what are the common complaints or common issues that is raising in the market now. Is how is our data getting lost or thefted, is on the three major reasons that is explained on this, that you see in this slide here. One is the telemarketing. We all know on a day-to-day basis, we ourselves receive a lot of calls from the telemarketers, requesting us about our personal details. And most of us don't agree, but there is an awareness, a major element, which is awareness, which is missing in majority of the areas, not only specific to data privacy, in all the domains, including cybersecurity and business continuity and any area. Awareness is one basic element that is missing, due to which we are prone to a lot of incidents and lot of attacks. And in that, that's why these three common trending complaints that we are seeing is telemarketing and the emails, the promotional emails that we get. The employees, or usually the individuals, are not aware that if they receive any emails, how to react to that. Are they liable to open the attachments? Are they okay to go ahead and click on the links? They are not aware about the scams, the phishing scams that is happening on a day-to-day basis. And how protected they should stay in a working in a secured environment. So that is one of the common case. And the CCTV, or the video surveillance, is another where the data breaches happen, where this data is stored, like the video surveillance or CCTV coverage. It is being stored in a place, where we could get the information if we are stolen, right? So these three major elements are connected with a individual, right? If the individual is aware about how to react to these situations, and how to get aligned to the how to be compliant to the data that they are working on, this could be avoided. And that's where, if you see in the market, majority of the incidents or the data breaches happen because of the unavailability of the individuals awareness. awareness. Nearly 90% or 92% of the threats that we see in the market is only because of the individuals who are not aware about the information that they are working on, and how to protect the information, and how to safeguard the system that they are working on. Okay, so this is as per the European Data Protection Board, is this common type of complaints that is projected here. And the fines that is issued under the GDPR authorities is shown. This is some of the samples uh, you know um, which has happened across globally, and how the GDPR authorities have penalized up to 4% of the annual turnover. And it is not only with the what we don't see here, which we all are aware, as most of us have accounts with Facebook, right? Facebook is started off nearly, we all know it started off nearly 2 3 3 years before, but still it is open. And they paid lot of penalties, and trying to upgrade their systems, and trying to protect their systems. And a lot of changes that is coming up. We would have also seen, whenever we are logging into Facebook, it will ask us automatically, do you want to make these changes, accept, agree, yes or no. These kind of pop-ups also we would be getting when we are trying to log into Facebooks, right? So this is because of the you know this is because of the upgrading of the systems, and because of the deviations, and the data data exposure that is happened, and due to which they have come up into the limelight to pay the penalties. There are a lot of you know incidents that is occurring on a day-to-day basis. They've been informed, and they are upgrading the system. It's still not closed, because they are still not they have still not aligned to the expectations or the regulatory requirements that is defined in GDPR. So these are some of the samples. And for more details, if you could just take these samples and Google it, you can find the complete case studies of these incidents. And more of incidents, case studies, and some samples have been given in the references of this deck. Okay. And now we've seen about the data privacy, how did it come into picture, and about GDPR, and what are the key principles, and how do we have to get aligned to, and the data the data subjects rights, the data controllers, and data processor and sub-processors. We just saw about it. And what are the different kinds of risks that is trending in the market now, and what is the major cause behind that. And now we are seeing here what kind of approach that we can take to ensure our data is protected, and we are safeguarding the information that we are working on. So this is the risk based approach that you see on the screen here. There are six important six important key elements that you see here, which is important for us to keep an element to um, do a risk assessment. So there is one there is one assessment for under GDPR that we see is DPIA, which is data protection impact assessment, which is very important for us to do to understand the criticality of the data that we are working on. And for doing that, these are the six key elements that we can keep in mind while we are processing, right? So here, first and foremost is the profileration is nothing but the movement of data. When we are working on the data, as we spoke just before, the five questions. So when we are working on the data, so what data are we working on, why we are working on this, what level of access do we have, are we transferring the data within the function, or outside the function, or outside the border. We will have to categorize and store it in a secured place, and also define the retention periods, and the geographies that it comes under, and the to what acts and to what regulation that it has to be aligned to. This categorization of the profileration has to be defined while we are doing the DPIA. Okay. And the next comes the data volume. So data volume, when we're talking about this, there are different types of data that we are working on, right? There is personal data and there is sensitive data, and these are all important categorization that we'll have to work on and look into when we are doing the impact assessment. When we are talking about the data, we all store it in different platforms. It is not only in an Excel. We all work on Excel worksheets or Excel workbooks, and tools. What kind of tools are we using, and where is it stored, and is the data that we are working on is accurate, and is it backlogged, and where is it stored? Is whatever data that we are working on, we'll have to ensure it is stored in a protected place. And if it is more than the relevant details that is available in the data that we are working on, that is also prone to risks, right? So that is why this data specifically calls out that we will have to ensure the data is relevant, accurate, and is specific to the purpose that we are working on. Okay. And when we're talking about personal data and sensitive data, so what are these, right? So when we're the personal data is nothing but an individual's it can be our names, the email IDs, the address, our home address or office address, our ID card information, the location, and the GPS, where we are located. So this is personal data, and sensitive information is very critical, and it is important for us to be protected. Specifically is um, sensitive data is nothing but our our biometric, our health reports, specific to the current situation, our health report, our health status, the biometric, our racial information, our genetic data, and it is the political opinions and the kind of discussions that we have, our opinions specifically, and our membership, and the IP addresses and the network that we are working on. All these informations are very sensitive and it has to be protected. And when we're talking about the data volume and the data protection, here one to quote which recently came up is the Arogya Setu app, right? We all would have seen that, and we are not sure, do we have to get it installed in our mobile, and is it mandatory? The organization in India came to us still at one point when this was newly introduced and mandated by the government, that all your employees should install this in their mobile, and you have to ensure your monitor. And tomorrow, if there is any audit that is going to happen, and if it's not available, that would be a case that would be that action that would be taken, right? But there were a lot of discussions happening, and even in the Google you would have seen a lot of threats that were highlighted. But there were a lot of revisions that was done post that. And the only from the data, it was more than there was two challenges that were discussed with respect to Arogya Setu app. One is the data protection or data privacy regulation, and another one is information security. So there is always a debate which one plays the higher side there. So here based on the discussions or what I've heard of, and what we are aware is, it is more of data privacy related, because it works more on the individual's data, a personal data, where if it's going to be installed in our mobile phones, we are not sure if our data would be thefted or data would be stolen. So a lot of upgrades and lot of interactions were happening, and that's where the retention period also came in, like within 30 days. Once the health status of people or the individuals would be tracked using that application, and once it is the purpose is over, within 30 days is which the timeline where the data would be erased. But still because of the current, or because based on the a lot of regulatory discussions, this particular app has not been mandated. It has then changed to recommended. The our government has recommended people to get it installed for getting traced. However, it is changed from mandatory to recommended. And also from the data protection standpoint, they have come up with a regulation that if there is any breaches that is going to be found, if it's going to come up, there would be proper actions that would be taken. Even the coding that has been open source for reference. So talking about this Arogya Setu app is nothing but one thing that we'll have to be seeing from data protection standpoint is, are all the data that is getting registered in or available in the database, is it protected, and is it only available to the specific requirements, and will it be overutilized, or how protected it is? Then I leave it to the individual's discussion. But what I'm saying is, the data that we are working on should be specific to the requirements, and it is any personal data that we are capturing should be relevant to the subject that we are working on, and the retention period should be defined specifically to ensure it is not being you know um stored in a place where it is open for access. And the next is the liability cost. Uh, Value of what is the data that we are working on and how critical it is, that would be calculated by the DPA that we are going to do, because it defines the criticality and the level of impact that it would give to the organization. Okay. And the data that we are working on, or the DPIA, will also has to include the geographical or the sensitive data that that is, the sensitive data is not applies in all the projects or all the all the services that we are providing, but we have to consider that also as one of the key element while we are doing a DPIA, to ensure the sensitive data, if we are working on, how what would be the impact and what would be the likelihood for the data to be stolen or data to be lost. Okay. And another key element while we are doing the impact assessment, data privacy or data protection impact assessment, should be the controls that we have to secure the data. So what kind of tools that we are using when we are doing the assessment, we'll also should ensure that we collect the information of how secure and how what are the tools that we are using to protect the data, to understand the impact levels. And one more key element that we have to keep in mind is especially the access levels. So when we are doing any DPIA based on the contractual obligations, or the contract, the the standard that we have built, what is the level of access that is being provided to the individuals, and what level of activities are they involved in, and is it maintained within the function, or external access is provided, and what level of users credentials are utilized. These are all the important elements that has to be considered while we are doing DPIA. Data protection impact assessment is very important for us to understand the criticality of the data, and what would be the impact if you are going to lose data that we are working on. And a template for this is provided in the reference section as a referral, as a best practices only. Just go through when you receive this presentation. All right. So this is I think the heading is missing, but these are the 13 compliance recommendations that would be that is good practices that we need to know, and we should be aligned to when we are working in a corporate environment. So one is prepare a record of processing activities. When we are saying prepare a record of processing activities, nothing but um, whatever data that we are working on should be stored in a secured environment, and it has to be tracked in such a way that tomorrow if someone comes or during an audit situation or any internal assessment, if they come to check what level of activities that happen, what are all the different access levels that were provided, and how long it has been utilized, and when was this data that is being erased, all these information has to be properly documented, and it has to be stored in a secured environment for any for future references or for future assessments. So that is very important here. The processing activity should be recorded and stored in a secured environment. Okay. And second is on the existing, we have a lot of policies that is defined in our organization, right? It would be our corporate policy, our information security policy, business continuity policy. There are different policies. Even so far, the data privacy policy has been very holistic, and it would be or some of them would be in always in the addendum of data information security, and some organizations have it as a general statement. But here there is an exclusive requirement, and exclusively important, that we will have to define a data protection policy as a standard specifically to showcase what is the level of data transparency and data processing that we are involved in, how we are managing the data, and how are we governing the data. It is very important. If it's already built also, we will have to relook into the policies to see how the GDPR requirements is added in our policies currently. However, once the PDBB is released, it has to be customized, and we will have to keep a tab on that once the PDBB is released, we will have to customize our data protection policies aligning to that regulatory act. All right. And another key element is the international data transfer, right? So this is nothing but when we are working on with any large scale or many big force, there is we have services that we are delivering across the globe. So we'll always, there are few key elements that we have to keep in mind, and we will have to confirm that what kind of information are we working on. If it's specific to Europe, are we working on the European personal data, and what is the European culture, what is the regulatory requirements there. We'll have to ensure there is a privacy shield that is being built, and it is being documented in our contracts. So when we are signing off the SOR contracts, then it would have been a single document, right? It always used to be a single document which completely talks about different clauses, right from code of ethics till to information security, the liabilities, the legal, everything. But for data protection specifically, there would be one line or one paragraph that would talk on a very high level, 30,000 feet high. It would be talking at a very high level. But GDPR has brought in a requirement as a mandate that we will have to have a DPA or a DTA also filled in and added in the addendum or as a separate document itself. But we need to have a DPA. What is the DPA? Is nothing but the data processing agreement or the data transfer agreement. So there are two documents that is involved here. It depends on the kind of work that we are doing. If it's going to be any kind of transferring of the data, or we are working in multiple geos or multiple locations, working on a single project, and that single project is nothing but a European project. If you're working on a European project and our teams are split in different location, we will have to ensure the DPA or the DTA, the data processing agreement or the data transfer agreement, both should be documented in such a way which composes of the level of access that is provided to us, or we need to work on the level of authorizations, what is authenticated, and the right from the the means and purpose of the work, the services that we are working on, the binding to our corporate rules as well as the client policies and code of conduct. It has to be aligned to the corporate and the local regulatory requirements. Okay. And another key element that we have to know about, or we have already discussed, is to be compliant, we have to ensure the global breach notification plan has to be documented. Mostly it is recommended that we every SAW or the contractual obligations we call it, should talk about the data breach notification, as we all know that within 72 hours is the expectancy from GDPR standpoint. So how do we define it from notification in between the sub-processor to the processor to the controller, and controller to the data subject? How well it has to be defined, and what are the notification periods? It has to be well defined to stay compliant, because even after 72 hours, if the processor is going to get informed to the controller and state that the GDPR just says undue delay, it didn't specify, or your contract doesn't call out any specific timeline for me to notify, that would become a major challenge. So it is always important to stay compliant. We document the data breach timelines, the notification timelines, especially in the contract that we are signing off with the client or the vendor or the third party. We'll have to ensure that is a key element to be added. And prepare HR specific deliverables. And HR plays a key role where they maintain a large amount of our employee personal data. So you will have to work with your HR, specifically HR policy and HR plans and HR process frameworks should have a key element of data privacy, and you have to closely work with them to ensure that is properly monitored and maintained. Prepare customer specific deliverables. As we said, the DPA and DTA plays a role, which we discuss now. Provide guidelines to information asset owners, upgrade IT application to address rights of. So these are all self-explanatory, which we already discussed now. And we'll have to ensure to stay compliant. These are the 13 key key compliance recommendations that is available in the net, as well as recommended by GDPR or the regulatory body to stay compliant. These 13 principles or the elements are very important. So moving on, now this is an exclusive slide talking only about the international transfers, for to be specific, to confirm the cross-border data transfer solution. So as we already discussed this on the standard contractual clause or the DPA, DTA, and aligning to corporate and regulatory requirements. So this is it. And here we have different references given here for us to go through and understand, go through different case studies that is available already in the market, or what the different types of incident that occurred, and templates and key takeaways that we can imply or implement in our organizations. And as I said, the GDPR violations are which is very prevalent in the market, and we'll have to always ensure 3 key takeaways. First is, we'll have to ensure we have a governed process and procedures well defined within our organization. The infringements and the fines are well documented and well registered for us to notify, or the data subject to notify the European Council without any delays. And the third takeaway is, we have to always ensure that we are compliant to the recommendations that we just discussed on. So thanks. If there are any queries, I think I'm over the time, and if there are any queries, please do let me know, or even after the sessions, if there are any queries, please let me know. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Kavita. So with this, we would be ending our session. As for the audience, if they will be, as Kavita already said, that if we have any questions, we can directly reach out to Kavita, or we can post in our WhatsApp group. Also, you can send it to us, to our official email ID, that is contact@csuplatform.com, and we'll try our best to get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you so much, Kavita, and thank you so much, Gaudhaman, and thank you so
all.
much.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Kavita, for a great session. It was very informative.
I'll be sharing this presentation with all of you, even uploading in CISO platform.
Yeah, that will be helpful, Kavita.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.